my personal opinion, obviously, I'm a little bit more biased to the second half. Rift's a little bit more biased to the first half. So obviously, let us know what you guys think down below. What are you guys thinking about the first half, the second half?
Who's right?
Or are we both wrong, or are we both right in the sense that
No,
this
you're both
banner is
wrong.
absolutely amazing, or are these banners just absolutely terrible and, you know, we're smoking something? But, you know, I don't really know. Welcome back, everyone, to Gacha Interact. Today, we're going to be going into our next episode of the GachaCast. In this specific episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. It's been a very brand new big thing with looking into Neverness to Everness, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But first, we're going to go into the 5.8 banners that are probably going to be speculated a little bit more, finally actually looking at what those next banners are going to be, and before we get into the next area of Nodcry. And then after that, also, we are going to be talking about some Stygian Onslaught things, the possible next one that's going to absolutely destroy us, and then obviously finally getting into Neverness to Everness talks. So let's go ahead without further ado and dive right in. So the first thing, obviously, as of course I just mentioned, we're going to be talking about the 5.8 banners. Now we know that Anefa, and we've already talked about her plenty enough, looking at Anefa as a character, we know that she's going to be one of the characters in 5.8. Now, before we get into talking about what the banners actually are, we talked about this rift before about who we thought, you know, who was going to be on the next banner. I remember you brought up specifically the idea of someone like, you were like, okay, well, the first characters probably should be coming up soon of those older, you know, earlier units from Natlan should be Mualani. And then maybe we'll get Kanish and, you know, some characters after that, and maybe Shilonan or stuff like that, and Chaska and Malwika after that. Well, we just got a Malwika rerun. Obviously, we're during that time frame right now. And then 5.8, we're like, okay, we already had the Kanish rerun, and we're like, you said, okay, we have to get Mualani or else I'm gonna go crazy. And well, your prayers have been answered because it looks like there is, and Mualani was one of these characters, so it's kind of funny how you kind of brought that up considering that did happen. And I know when you said that, I was like, okay, well, and we'll talk about that later in a second, but we'll look at this first half first. But then I brought up the idea of, oh, well, you know, speaking of which, a character like Mualani, you know, Chaska needs to get a rerun. But once again, let's look at this first half here, looking at Anefa and looking at Mualani. Are you looking for discounts on your favorite games? If so, Lootbar has got you covered. Lootbar is the go-to top-up service for all types of gamers for all types of games. And with that, Lootbar also offers tons of different benefits like delivery within 30 minutes of your purchase, if not even quicker and within seconds. They also have secure transactions because, well, for all games, including things like Genshin for instance, you only really need a UID and the server that it is with as well and associated with. That means that there's no need for any passwords or emails, so those things stay out of other people's hands and stay with you. Covering gachas like Genshin Impact and Love in Deep Space to other games like PUBG, Lootbar covers your transactions the more that you are going to game. And what's the best part? New users get 10% off of their first transaction as well. To start saving today with Lootbar, go ahead and click the link in the description or in the pinned comment as well. Now, let's get back to the content. So, I don't know, what are your thoughts here looking at this next banner at the very least?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I mean, like you said, I think it was in the last episode that I mentioned a lot because we were talking about Emily, and actually it wasn't the last episode, it was our Tipple and not Tipple on Malwika Emily, and so that kind of led into, oh, it makes sense that Emily's here because they just had Kanish. Where else, you know, why wait with Emily? She needs to be right before or right after Kanish or something like that because it just goes so well together. And that kind of made me think about, well, if Kanish was due for his rerun, which he was because he was 5.0, then that only leaves Mualani now. So it makes total sense, like you already pointed out, and we did in the last video, that Mualani is going to be rerun here. It is her first rerun. So we're going from 5.0 on her release all the way to 5.8. So it's a good 8 patches, eight versions, I should say, for her. So I think there's going to be quite a number of people, not like a huge number, but quite a margin maybe, that want to get her. She's not like meta defining. She's definitely not top 5 DPS. If you want actually a good video on top 5 DPS, Gel Impact has a really good synopsis, kind of just nice summary of going through the top 5 of what he thinks, and I agree with most of it. So it's a good video. Maybe you guys have seen it, but Mualani was not in there, and I think that's deserved. She's not, like, she's good, don't get me wrong. She's a great character, has some very, very high damage output, but I think that's partially due to the fact that it's just Natlan. The Natlan cast of DPSs are just kind of on another level that we just see. So she can be a little clunky to play. I know that's a lot of people's complaint with her, similar to characters like Hu Tao. Hu Tao on release, a lot of people had an issue with her playstyle. She's a little bit harder to play. Like, if you learn how to play, you can still get it, but Obviously, the C0 to C1 difference is a playstyle difference, so it's a big feel difference, not necessarily damage, which, yes, it is a damage increase technically, but it's a big deal, obviously, is my point. So if you don't like or have to think about clunky feels to a character, or just, I guess, big consequences to messing up, and that's maybe a frequent thing with your play, Mualani may not be for you. I do think that it's important to pull DPS as you like and then build around them, because ultimately Mualani is a character that will clear content in the content that makes sense for her, I should say, because now that we have Stygian Onslaught, which we'll talk about in the next section, the game's just becoming more character specific when you think about it. Like, and looking at Anefa, I think that's kind of transitioning into that. We're getting into very specific kind of gameplay, and with Anefa bringing out this new lunar charged kind of reaction, whatever you want to call it, I think, you know, the new endgame content is going to call for that. And if you don't have Anefa, it's going to be a real struggle bus to just do it. Now, I'm sure you can Unga Boonga without her and just do a regular Electro Charge team, but we are definitely starting to see that Lunar Charge is probably going to come into play. This is probably setting the stage for other new reactions that may show up throughout Nod Cry, because, okay, we have Lunar Charge. What if there's going to be like Lunar Melt, Lunar Vape, etc.? Are there going to be other characters that do that? And if so, will the just content down the road also call for stuff like that and just be increasingly hard because you're not pulling these new characters? So I don't know. As far as the value goes here, Anefa is going to have value just because of the new Stygian Onslaught, and also just new reaction. That'll be a lot of fun to play around with. A lot of people are saying she's a buff for even like Novelette teams, for like maybe an Electro Charge Novelette team, which can be kind of fun. And then Mualani, yeah, I know I've already talked about it. I'm kind of biased maybe on her because I'm kind of a Mualani main. She's my favorite character in the game.
Who would have guessed? Would have never known.
I might be going for that C1, but who knows? Who knows? But that's kind of my thoughts there on the first half. So
yeah, I mean, I think like it basically, as you just said. I mean, I think it's just going to be an interesting banner. I think these banners are going to be kind of just like the last banner, to kind of make you sap your primos right before Nod Cry comes. And so when you have no primos, and then hopefully if they do the reset around the 0.2 era, then they're going to be like, hey, you know, the new big bad or big good thing of, you know, the next, you know, crazy crushing, you know, character is going to come out. You got to pull now, but you don't have any wishes.
Yeah, it could be like
you
a
spent
Emily
everything.
to Kanish thing.
Yeah, you spent
so?
everything. Well, I think it's going to be more like you spent everything, so now you're going to have to pull the next thing. It may be a character that works well. Yeah, I've talked about in the past, a character that works well with Anefa, but also it could work something in the opposite sense of it's like, hey, this is like an Emily thing where, like you were talking about before with Emily, and I know last time we talked about this in the to pull not to pull, it was like she's not really having that much value, so is this really just a sap of your primos right now to kind of pull you into the cleaning lady, vacuum lady that is Anefa? But either way, that's the first half. The second half really comes down to looking at the next characters, which is Chaska and Sitlali, which personally I think is an absolutely insanely strong duo of a banner. Another reason why this is going to be, in my opinion, just a sap you of your primos type banner. Chaska, obviously, with Papilla, possibly, obviously, we'll talk about Stygian, but even still in, like, the endgame itself, normal endgame, you know, even having that as an option, Papilla does rise up in different ways, in different areas all the time, unwanted and undesired, and Chaska just does really well against that. Same thing with Kanish, obviously, as we talked about last videos, but never mind another character that works well with her and works well with so many other characters. Obviously, Mawika with Chaska, with other units. Sitlali is another great solid character here. So you don't really lose anything by having, you know, Chaska or her in this banner. Both Sitlali and Chaska, I think, it's just, if anything, in my personal opinion, that banner is, in my opinion, stronger than the Anefa and Mualani. But once again, that's just my personal take.
Yeah, I can somewhat agree with that. I'm kind of hard stuck to Anefa just because I just feel like Lunar Charge is going to be something, like if you don't have it, it's going to be like this, oh man, I really wish I had this access to Lunar Charge, because that's what Anefa is. She's an access to this thing, because at the point of her release, there's going to be no one else. There's going to be no substitute to do Lunar Charge or whatever. She may be the only character even down the road. I kind of thought about, you know, Emily for Kanish. Emily, I think when she came out, didn't have a lot of pull for a good majority of players until we hit 5.0. And then Kanish came out, and everyone that wanted Kanish that didn't get Emily was probably like, oh man, I should have pulled her. And I didn't do it. I got to pull her on the rerun. So who knows? Do you think Anefa might be the quote Emily to the quote 6.0 Kanish? Like that character might require a lunar charge thing to be going on while they can't create it for themselves, maybe. So who knows? Anefa could be part of, like, I know you kind of also alluded to it. She might be like part of that new best team in 6.0, 6.1, 6.2, whatever that looks like. Obviously, I wanted to say this: don't pull Mualani for lunar charge stuff. She's probably not going to be good at all for that. She wants to vaporize, and she's kind of hard stuck to that. I've even tried, for the fun of it, okay, this is going to sound bad, but for the fun of it, I've tried Mualani with Escoffier and do like freeze Mualani, which surprisingly I was still breaking 100k because she's a Nuki character, but that's still much worse than what she should be doing. She should be hitting 300 to 400ks on a well invested, if not even higher than that. So don't pull her for using her with Anefa, just to be clear on that. And then with Chaska's great. I love Chaska because she's just so versatile. Kind of like the Animo version of Navia, where Navia is just a versatile character because she just works with almost any of the core 4. She wants the crystallize to be happening. So technically you could do like a Navia and Nefa electro charge thing going, lunar charge from off field, Navia still getting her crystallize and do like a weird geo lunar charge thing going. Like that should work on paper, right? Chaska should be the same way. Chaska with a Nefa might be pretty cool with like Farina, right? And then maybe Auron in the last slot, or just a different element to get even more of her Animo bullets converted to an element. So I think the point is, Chaska just has so many different things she can do, which makes her pretty free-to-play friendly. If you don't have really any characters at all, Chaska's a pretty good first 5-star because she'll work with almost any of the off-field 4-stars. She borrows their element and just uses it to deal damage, and with pretty okay multipliers. Now, once again, like Mualani, not top 5. She's probably close to top 10, if not in the top 10. She's pretty powerful, especially in her best team. And then Sitlali here as well. I mean, we just had Mawika, and if you want to have Mawika's best team, you want to have Sitlali. She's a great character. And even outside of Mawika, some people think that Sitlali is only tied to Mawika, and while she kind of is, that's not wrong. There's still a lot of teams where Sitlali actually can be a part of and is almost one of the best in slot, or usually like a substitute. Like if you don't have Shenhe, Sitlali is a definite option for some of those Skirk teams or any other cryo DPS team. If you have a Scoffier, Sitlali is always feeling pretty good there. With those new freeze teams, and any other kind of melt team, like if you're doing Gaming, Melt with Shan Yun or whatever, well, actually his best team would be like Shilon and Bennett, and then actually Sitlali, and she has enough cryo application. She's buffing the melt reaction, so any team really where you're doing melt reaction, she's helping. And she even does have a Hydro Res Shred, so even if you're doing like a Nouvellette Escoffier team, which works, honestly, it's pretty good. Sitlali feels good there because you're still getting a Hydro Res Shred and a good shield. So even if it's like a C0 Nouvellette team with a Scoffier, Sitlali just feels good because she's the shield. Since you don't have interruption resistance, she's going to feel good there. And even with Chaska really wants Sitlali. I think Chaska's best team, and it might have changed, one of you guys can correct me in the comments, but I think Chaska's best team to date is still Bennett, Sitlali, Mawika. And oddly enough, yeah, it's Mawika. Mawika's always going to be in the best team for any said character, right? But that team's just ridiculous because Sitlali is going to still allow Mawika and her sub DPS play in this team to still get a melt, so you're still doing 500,000 damage when she comes out. You're getting a good shield for Chaska as well as continual application. The cryo conversion on the bullets with the pyro conversion on the bullets, meaning Chaska is now getting some melts, whether it's reverse melt or forward melt. Either way, it's good. So I know there's a lot that we could say here, okay? And there's a lot I'm saying here because, like I said, I'm a Mualani main, and not too far behind, Chaska is one of my favorite characters as well. So this is why I'm kind of rambling. I think I'm just gonna stop here though and let you talk for a second now, Vixen.
Give yourself a break here. But yeah,
Right.
I think like overall, I mean, everything you said is exactly what I was going to bring up. I mean, the biggest thing probably was like the idea with like a C0 Nouvellette. That's kind of what always I kind of bring an outside of Mawika team, Sitlali team that you can kind of bring. But yeah, I mean, the reason why she works well, even with other characters that maybe aren't meta or aren't Natlan characters. I mean, think of Wanderer, right? Wanderer still wants some of those other characters, but a solid shield in there that can actually still bring him some really strength while he's up in the air, because he's pretty vulnerable in that state while he's using up those Kuguryoku points. But still, you know, there's just so many different things. Obviously, she's the upgrade to kind of the Layla in that instance. But either way, I think that, like, looking at everything, this is actually a very solid 4 characters on a banner. My personal opinion, obviously, I'm a little bit more biased to the second half. Rift's a little bit more biased to the first half. So, obviously, let us know what you guys think down below. What are you guys thinking about the first half, the second half?
Who's right?
Or are we both wrong, or are we both right in the sense that
No,
this
you're both
banner is
wrong.
absolutely amazing? Or are these banners just absolutely terrible and, you know, we're smoking something? But, you know, I don't really know. What I do know is that next Stygian Onslaught is going to have all of us doing something crazy, because looking at the next Stygian Onslaught that we have, it's going to be rough. And there's a reason why we have a few of these characters coming up. So we have the Tenebrous Papilla. We have the Battle-Hardened Tent Tortoise. Yep, that's right. We're getting the tortoise to absolutely come and destroy all of us. And then we have the Battle-Hardened Papillapin Idol 100 Deceptions, which is the huge cactus. If you haven't seen it yet, that's going to be an interesting jump scare for you when you guys look it up. Or if you guys obviously go wait until the game actually releases and you'll see it.
I don't think I can fight that with a straight face. Just going to be doing my fearless attempt, my dire attempt, and just laughing out loud, trying to get a perfect combo rotation.
It's going to be interesting because here's the thing. You have the Papilla, which we all know is very, very difficult, obviously. So a lot of ticks is going to get rid of its little shield thing that you want to do. Obviously, doing more Night Soul hits is going to do more of those attacks. Originally, you know, one of the better characters, obviously, we have the Kanish Burning team because of the Night Soul consistency, but also the constant ticking of burning. And then you also have the other aspects of things like the Malwika team, but even behind or ahead of the Malwika team, you have something like Chaska. So we just had Kanish with Emily and that whole idea of the burning sense, and that's kind of getting ready for the Stygian. And then we obviously had right next to that, we have the Malwika with the Chaska and the Sitlali to then bring right into the next extra help for the Papilla as well. So having those 2 DPS is going to make the Papilla not that much of a problem. Outside of that, worry about just attacking as fast as physically possible if you don't have a Night Soul type character. If you do have some of the units, obviously Malwika is going to be extremely helpful in this specific state. More on that, obviously, in general, I guess, with Papilla, but that's kind of the idea you want to focus on there. The turtle, honestly, I think everyone's going to have probably the hardest time with the turtle. Even though the next one also looks pretty rough, the turtle, I think it has, the highest amount of HP among the 3. And that spinning damage thing is probably one of the most annoying. And it does so much damage to you. It can if you do not have, and I know Rift, you're talking about this, if you do not have an HP scaling unit, you're probably dying in a tap or two. Like, it's, once again, it's obviously not that crazy, but still, once again, I think that these things do happen, and this is going to be an annoying boss.
Well, and to think that the overworld one is actually still
annoying
less levels, like it's someone can look it up or whatever, but I think the overworld local legend of the tortoise is level 105, which is going to be, I mean, that's fearless difficulty. So that might be honestly a good gauge for how ridiculous it will feel trying to do it on fearless. And honestly, doing that solo, I feel like I'd have a harder time with that than even we had with the Tulpa. And I know most people that were able to do fearless, the very, very select few that can't even complete dire, and even the people that can't quite complete fearless, which is totally understandable, by the way, by all means. There's a lot of people that can't even do fearless. The Tulpa is definitely like everyone's complaint. I feel like here, like you said, the tortoise is going to be everyone's complaint, and I feel like it might be even worse. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's funny because
spinning the shield, it's just
the same thing as this last one is going to be the same thing as this next one, right? The one that everyone, I think, originally thought was going to be a problem was the cryo boss. You know, the one that's like, okay, if you don't have Skirk, or, you know, okay, well, you're kind of screwed. Oh, well. But a lot of people weren't even talking about that one. Although they might have had similar issues, they weren't talking about that one. They were, like you were talking about, they're talking about the Tulpa. Here, you'd think we would be talking about the brand new Cactus Gunslinger and talking about him with his whole electro charge thing. And if you, basically, it's an NFA check, and if you don't have an NFA, you're screwed. But I have a feeling that, yes, that's going to be a strive of contention. Obviously, having Hydro and Electro together is going to be helping. But I think that even isn't going to be the basis of topic here. I think it's still, like you said, still going to be the tortoise no matter what. A boss that we've had still, but it's still going to be a very large annoyance. Now, I think it, yeah, once again, it does have, it looks like it has the highest amount of HP. So it's just, I think it's just going to be such an annoying boss to go against. That's where our big problem is going to come up in.
Yeah, yeah. I think now that we do, because I think someone might already have been thinking this. What is the major difference between when a lot of players, when Natlan was open for the first time, what is the major difference between fighting the tortoise then and now? And I feel like one of the hugest differences is that now we do have Skirk. Sitlolly didn't exist for the most part when people were actually trying to fight the tortoise, right? Malwika wasn't out yet, so we were still using some Fontaine characters, because it was really just Mualani, and we were even still waiting on Kanish, because we thought that Kanish would be like really good with that burning, Dendro on Electro. Burning's a lot of ticks to get the shield down, but now, I mean, Cryo, we all know that Cryo on Electro is really good, so maybe, who knows, a Skirk team will probably be a really good option on the tortoise, because once it does put up the shield, you'll have so much cryo app from Skirk herself, Sitlolly, whatever, I mean, Scofia, whatever you're using there, it might take that shield off quick enough to where he won't have to, you won't have to deal with the spinny thing attack, because there's no doubt that's going to be one-tapping people. It might even one-tap HP scalers in dire difficulty, because it was already one-tapping in Overworld. So it's going to be ridiculous. I think for looking at HP bars, because I think some people would want to know, Papilla looks like 11.5 million, at least for right now. The Tortoise, 12.8 million, being the highest HP of the three, with the Cactus, the new Electro, Lunar Charged, whatever, boss, only having 10.2 mil. So Tortoise is definitely the tankiest, which is why I'm kind of thinking Tulpa all over again, because the biggest, once again, the biggest complaint with the Tulpa was the shield that it's putting up, and as a DPS check, because even on even on Fearless difficulty, sometimes you'd have to reset if you didn't do a correct rotation, even with someone like Malwika. Like, you really have to make sure you're doing it correctly. So it's a similar thing here, because it's putting up a shield. You have to make sure you're getting that off, doing your rotations correctly, whatever, with the gauge aura, the units, all of that, and all of that crazy nonsense, to make sure that you're not getting a death sentence from when it starts spinning around like Bowser, or one of those Mario bosses, right, at the end of the worlds. Oh man, it's gonna be.
It's definitely gonna be an issue, because once again, the Papilla, you can Night Soul, right? Like, that's your answer. Okay,
Right.
Night Soul. Let's pretend like a lot of people have Night Soul, or they can deal with burning. There's a lot of ways to counteract that. The
Right.
Cactus thing, right? It says he's gonna summon 3 hats. He's gonna jump inside of one of them, quickly switch the positions. If the hat he's hiding in takes like Electro Charge or Lunar Charge damage, it'll pause the switching. And then if you defeat the hat that he's in, then it's going to weaken him. All of the resistance that he has is going to be immediately brought down. Electro Charge and Lunar Charge damage is going to be increased as well, even further than the others. And, that's obviously going to be the biggest thing here. So that's going to be kind of how you're focusing him. So you can play, like, once again, we still have, you were talking about Fontaine characters, you could still talk about a Neuvillette Electro Charge type team to try to make that work, even with or without an Effa, and looking around those types of ideas. That, once again, you can still work outside of with other units, and we're not talking about Fearless and Dire only. Obviously, all the other ones still could be a pain for some players as well, so that's kind of the range you want to look for with those. The Tortoise, like you said, no matter what level you're on, whichever difficulty you find the most difficult, or the hardest, or where you're at, either way, we're going to see a bigger problem. Like you were talking about, this could just be a Dendro / a cryo check, and it might be difficult for some people that have Kanish but don't have like a really good cryo character, therefore they can't put the Kanish against the battle hardened Tortoise, so that becomes a problem. There's just a lot of like idiosyncrasies that I think we're going to see when it comes up. Obviously, Stygian Onslaught is always going to be a pain, and I think that's the whole point of it. It's supposed to make us kind of be like, oh, that's right, we can't just beat around the abyss and get away with it. Sometimes it's gonna fight back.
Just unga bunga. Yeah, I think you said it with the word idiosyncrasy was a good way to say it. I mean, like, that's literally Stygian Onslaught. It's testing. Okay, we're gonna make these players take out their best team. Can they actually clear this content while using their best team and actually thinking about or practicing what they've done to master a very specific rotation for specifically this one-time boss? It's that hard. Like, even people do it. Like, if we go back to the cryo boss on the current Stygian Onslaught, it's possible to defeat the cryo boss with C0 Skirk with the weapon and even C0 supports. It's possible, but it required like sitting down for a couple of hours, if not more, and mastering the rotation after just figuring out in the first place. You have to figure out, how can I get in these certain attacks? Can I make sure I get my burst here? You might have to rebuild for ER in some cases, because you need to have a burst at this exact time for this particular rotation number 3 or whatever. Like, it's that just idiosyncrasy, right? If that's a word, whatever. You guys get the point. So I think, yeah, once again, Kanish is going to be kind of shining again, which is funny. Kanish has actually been really good for the first 2 Stygian Onslaughts, is what it's looking like. He was great on the Lava Dragon. He's going to be great on the Papilla, and even if you're not using him on the Papilla and using another alternative to that, he still will be pretty good on the Tortoise, just because of burning, getting that Electro Shield off. So Kanish is eating real good with this content. And if you don't have him, one of my thoughts for Papilla was, if you don't have him, you can still do like a Malwika or Arlecchino burning team. If you have Emily, even if you don't have her, burning in and of itself is just going to do really good to take down the Papilla's Night Soul shield, but also even the Tortoise's shield, if it can be taking that burning to, you know, break off that Electro shield. Either way, I honestly, the more I think about it, the Cactus, it doesn't seem as bad as I initially thought, especially after we looked through the different mechanics. Even if you use, like, we talked about Nivelette, one thing that came to my mind also was, if you have Varessa, you can do like Varessa, Farina, Shan Yun. It's not her overload team, but if you have Farina, maybe you don't even have to have Shan Yun, because while you want to follow mechanics and make sure you're doing what you need to do to weaken the bosses, you still need to also have the DPS check in there. That's I think the hardest part about Stygian Onslaught, on a side note, is that it's not just a mechanic check or have these characters check. It still is a DPS check even after getting through mechanics. So that's the biggest thing here. But like, even without a Nepha, it might still be totally doable. It's the squishiest of the 3 bosses. It's the lowest HP. Still a lot. It's 10 million health. It's still a lot. But as long as you're just getting Electrocharge in there, it's all resistance gonna, it's greatly increased all resistance except for Hydro and Electro, period, right? So even right out the gate, your Hydro and Electro damage will still deal pretty good damage, kind of reminding me of the Lava Dragon. The Lava Dragon has ridiculously high Pyro resistance. It has all resistance, right? But it's even higher on the Pyro. And then when you get it to its, you fill up the first gauge, I think the Pyro specifically goes down. Or maybe it's all of them. I'm sorry. It's all of the resistances go down except Pyro. So Pyro still is not the best one. So that's why Kanish, I think, just does so well, because he's not dealing Pyro damage, but he still is doing the burn aspect for that boss, which is why I think he's just number 1 for that boss. There's a lot we could say, I think, at the end of the day with these bosses. I think we've hit the nail on the head pretty much already, and the nail's starting to sink in the wood past where it needed to be. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be hard. That's just Stygian Onslaught. Every Stygian Onslaught's gonna have its nuances and kind of, do you have this character kind of checks. So hopefully you guys will have an okay time doing it if you have certain of the characters that we've talked about. And honestly, even if you can't complete like Fearless difficulty, I still think for people that like the combat aspect in Genshin, it's fun to just try out different things, see how far can you get. I even had fun, while I can't clear dire difficulty on what we still have right now, I still had fun trying my hand at the Tulpa with my C0 Malwika, trying, my Varessa overload on the Lava Dragon, and then obviously trying the Skirk team on dire difficulty, which thankfully I was able to barely cut that thanks to Andad. He has a cool video on that. So it's still fun to try this out and see, can I at least get through half health? Can I get through 2/3 health? So for the people that just like combat.
Now we're going to be jumping into our next section, looking past Genshin, past the games that are actually released, and we're finally being able to talk about Neverness to Everness. Now, I do want to say, without further ado, I do want to say this first and foremost, we are not sponsored, and we do not have access to the game. We are
the
purely
containment test or whatever.
Yeah, we are not in part of the beta or beta 2, like they're in right now. Obviously, we're not part of the content creator program yet. If you want to let Neverness to Everness know and say, hey, by the way, let these guys in, go right ahead. But we are not actually a part of it. But we've watched a lot of content on it, obviously looking at a lot of other people playing the game, looking at the game. I've been following the game for about 1.5 years now. I know Rift and I have been kind of following our own games, if you will. There's a separate project called Ananta, or Project Mugen back in the day, that Rift was following pretty heavily. I've been following Neverness to Everness for I would say a year and a half almost, if not more, or close to 2 years, when they were kind of throwing out the ideas of this type of game. We've had, I think, a trailer now for about a year, so it's very, very, very cool to finally see at least one of these games at least get some of the ball rolling onto this sphere of looking into the gacha sphere. So
absolutely,
without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right in. Obviously, the videos that I personally have watched, and I know Rift has watched as well, we've looked over, Gacha Gamer has made a video over it, I Win to Lose Gaming has streamed multiple days of it and also made a video of it as well. So if you guys want to, I would definitely recommend the video, as it's just kind of a little bit more of a condensed feeling. But while time has passed and I've been doing other things, I've been also having these streams up in the background, so it's kind of cool to just see how the game at least plays. So if you have that ability, do that. If not, the video is still very, very good. With all that out of the way now, getting right into the first thing, which, I mean, we get into different types of games, right? And what's the first thing that we kind of think about when we get into these types of games is the combat. So that's the first thing I kind of want to jump at first, which is looking at how the combat is kind of looked at. If I could kind of bring a world to it, if that makes any sense, is it's kind of like Honkai Impact the Third with Zenless Zone Zero a little bit mixed in with all the other gachas. Now, I know that's just so like, cool. Okay, so it's literally just every gacha. Well, yes, but here's why.
Thanks, that didn't help me at all, Vixen.
Yeah, literally. So how the game looks and fights is it feels like Honkai Impact the Third. Zenless kind of has a little bit of a thing in there with it just being like how the UI is kind of put in certain areas, but it's also specifically on how the characters kind of move. I feel it's very similar to that. At the same time, you have stuff like a break bar, which you see in Withering Waves and even Honkai Star Rail. So there's stuff like that as well. There's like a break effect type thing in the top, and that can kind of change.
Like a weakness, maybe.
Yeah, there's like a weakness type bar that just kind of like goes down. That's something that you see. Okay. Also, there is an elemental wheel of some sort. I know when you kind of pull it up, there's multiple different elements that you can use. And the cool thing that I saw about this, which reminded me of Genshin, but even maybe cooler than maybe Genshin, is that there's different effects that brings, but you can do up to more than 2 elements. Now, I don't know if it goes up to 4, but I've seen up to 3 different elements kind of reacting at the same time to create an effect, which I think is pretty cool to kind of see that there's like multiple, usually in Genshin right now, we're always focused on, okay, a melt team or a this team and a this team. There's just way more kind of openings for this game. And once again, we are in the very early stages of a beta, so we're not expecting a lot, but it's just very cool to see that. So I don't know, that's where I'm running in with combat. I saw some parrying stuff, some overworld content.
It looks really fun. I like the parrying stuff. The parrying stuff is always just really fun. Back when I was playing WoA, when I was playing Zenless, the parries just feel good. Like actually parrying an enemy or like getting a perfect dodge, stuff like that just makes combat feel really like you're on your feet. You gotta, not that Genshin doesn't have that. It makes it feel alive. Genshin doesn't have like parrying stuff, and sometimes I wish it did, but it's different. It's a different game. But what I really like about NTEs, the little bit that I did see for the combat, I think they called those elements, there's like 6 of them, and I think they call them Esper cycles, or Espers, and when you do one of those, we'll call them elements for those who don't know instead of Espers. Right, for the relation to Genshin or whatever else. When you do one kind of type of damage, an element of damage, and you do another element of damage at the same time to one enemy, you will create an effect if those 2 elements have a relationship with each other, kind of maybe similar to Genshin also. Cryo and Pyro have a reaction that exists. It's called Melt, but Dendro and Geo don't. Nothing's going to happen there. So I at least didn't see enough to see if there are certain of those different 6 elements that are incompatible with each other. Maybe we'll find out more as the game gets closer to release. Can't wait to talk about it as that information's coming out. I would say, those 2 videos that Vixen brought up, Gacha Gamer has a good video on it. I Win to Lose Gaming has a good video on it. But yeah, the Esper cycles look, that's my favorite thing. When he was talking about that, quote unquote, the takeaway, I was like, oh my goodness, this looks so good. I'm so hyped for this, if you guys can't tell. So I like that there's still kind of an elemental system, and they have different relationships with how you want to deal with an enemy. And kind of going back to like Zenless, they have different weaknesses. You want to probably do a certain type of element to the different enemies. Different bosses may want this, another boss wants that, and may also have resistances. Kind of a lot like Zenless. You still have the weakness bar though at the top, like you said, Star Rail. So I love all of these different just elements that are kind of pulling together. You can draw from this game over here, that game over there, and it's creating still another somewhat original feel for combat. Dude, it looks so good. I cannot wait, because I love elemental reaction. I think if I had to choose one at the end of the day, the elemental reaction system that Genshin has is just one of my favorite. It's just so satisfying to do reactions, and that's what Zenless and Wuwa also have. While they may not have specific reactions between two different elements, they make up for that with the parry system, the dodging system, and just other things. So NT bringing that all together, I can't wait.
It's a very interesting, and there's other things that they've kind of pulled together, maybe understanding the idea of like the combat itself looks a little rough around the edges, if that makes any sense. And I know that it's a little bit hard, especially right now, to find overworld content, which I actually want to bring up. I actually kind of like, once again, I Win to Lose Gaming brought this up, and I would have to say I 110% agree, because he brought up the fact that it's like, these characters are like, you're in a city, right? Like, you're not gonna have, it's not like Genshin where you walk out a city wall like outside of Mondstadt and you just walk out, where, by the way, a bunch of other adventurers are just walking around and there's just a Hilichurl ready to throw hands. It's on the same effect as, a city. You're not going to see these running around all the time. Now, it's not going to be as crazy as like Kaiju number 8 or something that's going to, just come running out at you. But at the same time, you do have these anomaly assignments that you're going on, so you can kind of go look for it, but it doesn't look like right now it's kind of everywhere and throwing it out. So maybe in the future areas, or at least the beginning area, doesn't have that feel. So maybe in future areas there's going to be maybe more lawlessness, or more maybe a kind of a harder difficulty of maybe controlling the anomalies in those areas. So maybe we're starting in the nice area, maybe, and then as we kind of reach out a little bit more, there's going to be maybe some of those zones that are going to be more like what you see in Genshin, or even Star Rail, where you're just walking around and it's kind of like an older but it's like a JRPG where it's like, okay, now you're ready to fight something. So that's kind of the idea that I do really enjoy about the game, is that it didn't sacrifice the city feel, which we'll go into later as well, with the idea of just slapping a bunch of monsters anywhere and everywhere with all the random just NPCs walking around. So I actually enjoyed that, because I kind of explained a little bit more of the world. So maybe not
right, and you still have you have a party of 4, like, so you line up 4 characters. Right, that's similar to what most gacha games do. You have 4 characters. They're one of those 6 elements. I'll still call them that. They're called espers in the game once again, but you've got 6 different types of those. You're going to throw in 4 characters in a team that are one of those 6, right? Once again, you have those different relationships. You can call them reactions. They're, I guess, is not technically
I'm calling
wrong.
them reactions until
because that's what it is. It's you deal one type and then you deal another type. 2 different types of damage,
something like that.
And they cause something else new to happen. And similar to Genshin, the word itself will show on the screen what you did, right? Like, melt, or vaporize, or whatever. So it looks really good. And you kind of segued a little bit. I'm going to do the full transition, but you kind of talked a little bit about the urban life, the city life. I guess you could call it the exploration tangent or aspect of the game. It looks so cool. I'm
so ready.
It's like GTA. It's literally anime GTA gacha.
Yep.
You can get in cars you just see on the street, kick people out of the cars. There's a heat level, which kind of remind me of like Need for Speed, right? You can go, you'll go have cop chases at certain heat levels. They'll try to run you over and stuff. There's a lot going for it that looks so fun. There's a lot of freedom, I think, with expression as well. You can go buy houses or estates or whatever, a villa, and kind of decorate it how you want to. So
luxury
kind
cars,
of
luxury
like
apartments, yeah.
It kind of like you have the Serena teapot in Genshin, but this looks, I mean, if I'm being honest, it looks a lot better. I don't ever touch the teapot. This I actually kind of want to look into.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like Animal Crossing. I mean, the whole point of Animal Crossing is like you build your house, decorate your house, whatever, show off your island to your friends, kind of thing. And I feel like this game will also have a little bit of that aspect where you show off what you've gotten, like, oh, I got this car, this is my apartment, I decorated it this way. So there's going to be a lot of, I think, opportunity and a lot of fun for just doing co-op, because if we're being honest right now, co-op in Genshin, and I think a lot of players have talked about this, co-op in Genshin just sometimes feels dry because you just get to a point where you're just like, what is there to do anymore? Like, we only fight weekly bosses, we can do some domains together and just kind of walk around and have a friend help you find chests if they've already explored an area. Like, say your friend's already explored Fontaine and you're newer to the game, you're trying to get all the oculi, and so you're having your friend help you, but all they're doing is just kind of like, all right, now come here, follow me. And just I just wish there was more. I know people have talked about like user generated content for like randomly or like procedurally generated domains, or like dungeons, if you will, to where you can like do it with your friends and it's never the same twice. That would have a really cool novel feel. And there's other things people have talked about. So I say all that to say, I feel like NTE kind of helps that tangent. Like, co-op will be more just interesting, I should say, in NTE, because there's just so much more to do, or just have just fun shenanigans with like just getting in cars, maybe racing your friend. That, like, I know, Vixen, that we're going to be doing that, so it's going to be a lot of fun for the urban life. What else do you think about the urban life stuff?
The urban life is probably one of the most interesting parts, because once again, I mean, beyond Animal Crossing, beyond all the other things that you said, it is literally just GTA. I mean, especially looking at GTA 5, you are literally just, okay, you gather a bunch of money and spend it on what you please. Now, once again, going into the idea, though, a little bit more on spending and actually getting the currency, though, there's different types of progression you can get through the game. So there's city progression, and then there's also character progression, or maybe story progression, or whatever you might do, or battle progression maybe is a better way to say it. Battle progression is going to be a little bit more kind of easier to understand, considering it's just like Genshin, just like those other things, obviously. Maybe increasing companionship levels, maybe increasing, obviously, character levels and their weapons and their artifacts. Interesting, which we're going to talk about later in a second as well. But there's stuff like that that's just kind of like, obviously you have that idea. When you do your daily commissions, which is kind of, you know, fun like city things, so like transporting cargo or doing stuff like that. So once again, you're not fighting a random thing, and you're not going to talk to an NPC for 45 minutes like in Genshin. Instead, it looks like it's more like a transport, or, you know, doing stuff in the city, which might actually turn into a 45-minute discussion, but hey, we never know. So that's at least what that looks like it's going to be. But at the same time, you're also doing, maybe that's going to be giving you the premium currency to get pulls, and it could also be something like, once again, you're also working at the same time to do city progression, getting city currency, because city currency is going to be different than what your battle currency or character currency is going to be, supposedly. Once again, kind of talking like, you wouldn't use, like, you know, some of those things to upgrade, you know, characters or whatever. So that looks very, very cool. It's, once again, something that you can kind of have one end, you're doing your daily commissions, but you're progressing two different paths, your city and also your kind of battle progression. So that looks, I think, the most cool. That's the idea, is that you're kind of knocking two birds with one stone. This is probably the most user-friendly gacha I've seen in a hot minute. Once again, I love Genshin, I love Star Rail, I love all of our gacha games, but we're gonna get through more of these things, kind of just jumping through everything. We're gonna see more and more how this is just extremely friendly to the user. So
right. And I mean, because to kind of jump on that, there's just, like we've said, there's so much you can do. It makes other open world gachas look limiting, because you can literally do whatever you want. I can really see players that are totally not playing for story. They don't even care. Let's say they haven't even done the chapter 1 or whatever they're going to call it, and they never really want to, but they have all of this stuff because they're playing like this other aspect of the game, which is, yeah, and like, yeah, basically, because it's like this aspect of the game is already so big in and of itself that I can totally see that people will be playing for the story, never touching the city life stuff or having their own apartment or house or whatever, right? And just playing for the story or playing for the combat. But this whole city life thing, I could totally see a lot of casual players just solely enjoying 99% of their gameplay. Just, all right, I'm sending my characters that I have to go work at this coffee shop, which that's a whole nother thing I'm very excited for. Like, I won't get into all that, but it looks really fun. But like that could be their experience, and the other 1% is maybe doing story or actually going to fight something and building a character. So it looks great. But I think our next thing we want to talk about, unless you had something to say, what was it?
Real quick, I think like the thing is to say real quick is like I think I really enjoy the idea that, like you were talking about, it's almost like the game is rendering things as it's kind of coming up. So it's open rendering. It's not kind of closing an area off and then you're teleporting there and then it's gonna take a minute. The break times in the game, your loading screens are extremely fast, and obviously the people that are doing this, right, and they're trying to purposely make it like that so that as soon as you're in a new area, it's rendering everything new and then unrendering everything behind you that's you're not in the area of, so that you can kind of keep everything on what you're looking and going into. So
right.
And that opens like the ability to like have random shops and everything that are just available to walk in, whereas in Genshin we don't have that ability. You can't just
you have to go through a loading screen to like walk in Diona's tavern to play TCG, or going to the Angel Share
exactly, or inside the cathedral, or
literally anywhere.
Exactly,
there's a loading screen barrier, whereas this has the seamless transition of being indoor to going to an outdoor area, because it's all just open rendering, like you said. Now there are some pros and cons to that, the pros being what we're talking about here. One con that one of them, I think Gacha Gamer brought up, was sometimes if you're going really fast in a car, you can start to see it in a distance.
Trees will
and that also depends on your processor, your
nowhere.
Computer. Yeah. So there's pros and cons, but I really like this. I don't think that con, at least for me, is too big an issue unless it gets too crazy. But and that's the other thing. It is the beta, so
whatever. So
they're probably working on that. So,
but yeah, jumping into the next thing, I don't know if you were going to jump here, but I do want to jump into the next biggest thing of a gacha game, which, I mean, it's in the name, which is the gacha itself. So the biggest thing here, everybody's been talking about, everybody's going to be kind of going over is, I think Etheria Restart actually had this idea as well, which is no 50-50s. So Rift, you're saved. There is no loss of 50-50.
This is huge for me.
Have to worry
this
about
is huge
for
me.
Again.
As someone who always loses their 50-50s, and maybe you can resonate, this is huge. This is awesome. And now I know people have like some pros and cons, that this being a major pro, right? No 50-50. Now, Vixen, what are some of the cons to this, though?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. I mean, overall, I'll probably have to throw something on screen to show you what this looks like the pulling itself. You're basically
you're like
using dice to pull. Now, there's like a little game board, and it's kind of like you're rolling dice to then land on something. Now, the chances are all the same. It's just making a fun mini game out of pulling, which I kind of
which
actually
is cool.
enjoy.
I was looking at him like, okay, this looks really good.
In a very basic sense, like not going, once again, watch the other videos. They go a lot more into depth over everything we're talking about. But I mean, some of the biggest things, obviously it's 90 pulls to guarantee a 5-star of the character, specifically 80 for the weapon. The soft pity for the character is going to be at 70, hard pity at 90, obviously. There's this game board with dice. It looks very pull friendly for, once again, users, going back to that user friendly thing. And I think that that's really going to be helpful, because inside the pulling mechanic as well, little spaces on that, like the board, like a Monopoly board, basically, you're kind of running around. There's extra dice you can pick up, so it's kind of like picking up an extra intertwined fate. If you did a 10 pull and one of the 10 pull, like one of the things was like an intertwined fate that you got to like recharge back, like a refund. Which is basically
kind of like getting
a C6.
Another copy of a C. Yeah, you already have a C6 4-star. It gives you 5-star glitter, which is a refunded pull. It's kind of like that, but kind of like.
But you always have that chance no matter
from
what.
That. So day one, this could be happening when you're throwing pulls in. You can get some refunded pulls.
And exactly, and also there's a type of like getting the star glitter, stardust type stuff as well. I think they're called. I had it written down here. They're called. I think they're. Some weird thing. I think they're called like warp pieces or something like that. I had that written down, but that's the
something
idea.
You would know. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think they're called warp pieces, and that's kind of, once again, you can use those to buy, obviously, the currency. And then the weapon banner runs a little bit weird. There's only like, I don't know. It works with keys, and then it's once again something that if you watch the videos, you'll probably understand more. Watch people do it, you'll actually probably get it a little bit better. But I think the banners look fun and interesting. Now, I don't know. Is there any other negative things that you actually see on your end, Rift?
One thing that I thought of is, as I was watching Gacha Gamer talk about it, one thing that kind of came into my head, and I could be wrong about this, is it's probably statistically a lot less likely that you get early 5 stars when you're pulling on this kind of gacha system, because this NTE's gacha system is very different than all of these other gachas with this board. Basically, what it looks like to me is one pull. Let's say you just do one pull. Each pull you do is the rolling of a die. You roll a die, and then you move however many spaces on this board. Now, the board has all of these different spaces that are, you have your 4-star spaces, and every now and then you have the 5-star spaces. So let's say you're 5 away from the 5-star space, right? Your one pull, you're gonna roll a die, and it would have to be a 5 for you to actually land on the 5-star space. So I think the probabilities at the end of the day probably all math out to roughly the same as like all the other gachas, and this is all just animation stuff that we're looking at. But it did make me think, I wonder if because there's, and maybe this is why there is no 50-50, is because getting in early might just be more rare than even in the other gachas. But I don't know, what do you have to say about that?
So looking at the numbers itself, if you pull up the details themselves, and I'm pretty sure Genshin, once again, you can do the same thing, pull up the banners right now and look. I'm pretty sure Genshin and Star Rail and the other gachas are pretty similar. It's about, after weighing in everything, weighing the rated up stuff and all that other stuff. Yeah, all those consolidated chances. At the end of the day, to get a 5-star on a random pull, it's about a 1.8% chance. So it's like a 1 in 54, whatever that is, 1 in 53 or something like that. That's the idea. Now, that is the same. You have soft pity at Genshin, which I believe is 74. So looking at that, and then it's 10 before for the weapon. Here, the soft pity is going to be at 70. So it's 4 sooner. Obviously, the guarantee is every single one. And it looks like the numbers are the exact same. Now, once again, you could argue that maybe this visual stuff is not just visual stuff, but I think that looking at this, I think it's going to be them refunding pulls consistently, them doing all these other things. Although you might not get earlies maybe that often, even if, let's say, that were the case, you weren't getting pulls that often.
I think it's still better.
You're always guaranteed to win, so it's always 90 wishes. And
at that point, you don't even call it a win because there's no losing. It's just exactly the character.
You're just getting the character. Now, and obviously all those other things, right? So you need like your pulls, you're getting the extra dice, you're getting the extra Stardust, Star Glitter, whatever, the warp pieces. Either way, that's not my concern. My main concern with it is going to be how easy is it going to be to get the wishing currency. You can look at all this other type of stuff in the gacha itself and looking at all this other stuff. From what I see, it's all very similar to exactly the same as the other gachas, if not even better, because there's no 50-50 and the soft pity is lower. That being said, how difficult is it going to be to get currency to pull? Now, once again, I don't know if they're going to change things in the betas and whatnot, but it looks like they've been pretty easily to get characters. It doesn't seem like it's been that much of a problem for them. But at the same time, maybe it's just easier for them because maybe they're in the beta. Maybe it's harder for them because they're in the beta. I don't really know, but we're going to see, because once they add more stories, once they add more content, obviously after these betas, maybe it'll actually be easier than them to actually get content, which once again goes back to the idea of, in my mind, seeing how user-friendly this game is going to be. That's just my opinion with specifically the gacha system.
No, it's a very good thing to point out, because a lot of people can be looking at this like, oh, wow. It's 90 PD, it's the same as the other gachas, but there's no 50-50 loss. Oh, that's amazing. Awesome. The thing, like you're saying, the caveat to that is, will they actually give us pulls, the currency we use to get pulls at the same or similar rate that we do in Genshin, in Star Rail, in Zenless, in Wuwa, or is it going to just take longer? Maybe some of you guys have played a game called Stranova. In Stranova, it takes a lot to get even just one pull on its gacha. Now, thankfully, Stranova's gacha is just cosmetic, so that's different maybe. But you definitely get pulls a lot slower in a game like that, and maybe there's other gachas like that as well, than you do in Genshin. In Genshin, you can get a 10 pull within the week very easily if you actually put your mind to it and go explore something or go finish a quest you just haven't done yet. You could do it in a day, to be honest. 1,600 Prima Gems, and if you have the content to do it, you can do that.
It's going to be a very interesting, I think, kind of play with the game. Once again, because you're talking about how maybe the exploration is going to help, maybe it's going to hurt. I don't know. Maybe if those people that are playing the city way, maybe that's a way to actually also get currency that's going to maybe double up.
Right.
So people who only play, I just need to only focus on fighting and on combat and all the story progression and don't think about the city stuff, could actually hurt them for their pulls. And that actually might, and once again, that kind of jumps into another idea. And some people that only go one way and I just want to play the game, I just want to have fun, I don't even want to think about the combat as much. I think those people that go too far, if the currency is given both ways, for both types of kind of ways that you play, I think that it's gonna become a very niche game, because they're gonna have to find people that want to do both, which I actually think is better.
Possibly.
Because once again, I don't think the game should be kind of, we'll see a little bit more as the game progresses, but I think the game should be kind of seen in its entirety as its gameplay, and we'll see kind of more as that kind of produces itself. But
yeah, and I see what you're saying. Genshin, I mean, I would argue that Genshin is kind of the same way. I mean, you have all of this exploration stuff, but then you also have the combat. Like because there's players out there, and I'm kind of one of them, where I don't explore much. If you guys saw my Fontaine exploration from like helicopter view, it's bad. Okay, we're talking like 18% in the Everness region, 30% and whatever else. Like, it's bad. Okay, guys, like bare minimum. Just did main quests and stuff. I haven't even done world quests. I still haven't done the Melusine world quest or the Narcissan Cruise quest. I know, crazy.
Don't worry, those are gonna take 7 hours.
Crucify me later, all right? Yeah, really. Somehow I did the RNR stuff, but I haven't touched that. Don't ask. I don't even know myself, okay? But similar to that, there are players who will only play for the combat in Genshin. They get the Prima Gems from the Abyss, the Prima Gems from Imaginarium Theater, and even the ones from Stygian Onslaught, the events. So we play that part and kind of don't touch the exploration. And then there are obviously players who do all of the exploration, 100% at literally everything, and they never even care to try Floor 12 of the Abyss. It's just a different way to play the game. There's no shame in that. Like, honestly, that's probably a more fun way to play the game. It's just less stress-free, or more stress-free, I should say, right? So I feel like maybe with NT, it might still be the same story there, where people are only caring about the urban life stuff and don't really care about the combat. And then there will be the combat people getting their pull currency from doing the end game and not really caring too much about the urban life. Because I think at the end of the day, the urban life is basically just the exploration. All of the different anomalies that can show up in the city are equivalent to like doing the time trial challenges in Genshin, or opening the chest, the Sealy stuff. So maybe, but I totally see your point, where it just depends on how generous they are with one thing versus over the other. Are they going to give way many more pulls in the end game combat related content, or are they actually going to be super generous in the exploration side, way more than maybe Genshin would be, as a comparison?
It's definitely gonna be, and I keep saying it because I'm just like, I'm just so excited. I'm ready hyped. I'm hoping that there's gonna be some good things that can come through with it. This is almost like it's almost like a passion project for me. I'm just waiting until I can play it. I've been waiting for a while for it, so can't wait to play. Can't wait to actually see what's going on in the games a little bit more, as stuffs are going to be changing, as things are going to be updated. Hopefully they'll be kind of moving things around and see what we can get through with that. But I think that's everything really we have to talk about. Everything this week in the GachaCast. Obviously, we talked about the banners, then we talked about all the stuff with Neverness to Everness, even went over some Stygian Onslaught stuff with Genshin. If you guys did enjoy the video, obviously, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Also, let us know what you guys think down below about everything. And I know we talked a lot about Neverness to Everness with this brand new game, so let us know what your guys' thoughts on it as well, because we just absolutely love yapping about it. So
no, and I want to know how many of you guys are actually looking forward to Neverness to Everness, because this might be something we cover regularly. Like, that's a possibility, and so I kind of want to know how many of you guys are excited for Neverness to Everness. So please let us know in the description.
Do let us know
the comments
down below. Yeah, I don't know how they.
If you have access to the video, it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd get into our description, but once again, though, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Though we really enjoyed doing this type of content, so obviously doing stuff about Neverness to Everness would be even adding more onto some of the weekly stuff that we could gather and look over. So once again, let us know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys though for watching the video again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.